Official proceedings, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on Jara country, for which the members and elders of the Jara community and their forebears have been custodians for many centuries and have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We acknowledge their living culture, their unique role in the life of this region. I have all councillors present, no apologies. Councillors, do I have any declarations of interest or conflicts of interest for tonight's agenda? No, all right, thank you, nothing. Minutes, our ordinary meeting of council from the 15th of October 2019.
Yes, Mayor, I'll move the recommendation of the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Mount Alexander Shire Council held on the 15th of October 2019 be confirmed.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you, Councillor Machen. Is there any opposition? I declare the matter carried. Thank you. And now I'm moving to public question time.
I'll move to suspend standing orders. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, before we actually accept that motion, I'll just see if is there anyone who wishes to speak to Council tonight. Yes, I have a hand up. So yes, thank you, Councillor Petrisma. Accept that motion. And the seconder, thank you, Councillor Neiman. So now we've suspended standing orders. If Jenso, you'd like to come and speak to us, if you'd like to come up to the lectern and give us your name and whether you're representing...
Date of birth and, all that sort of stuff. I'm Duncan Brown, I'm from Guildford. I'm speaking for myself as a ratepayer. Last December, I came into the Shire offices regarding the drainage and road maintenance. I subsequently had a meeting after several phone calls with Mr. Josipovic, and we discussed a few items. Very little has been done as far as drainage is concerned in this Shire. Longitudinal drainage on the side of roads to allow the water to get off, to take the pressure off the seals. I did actually speak, one point I made at the meeting, at the council meeting last year and with the meeting with Tanya and Mr. Josipovic, that the edges which had been done on the Friarstown Road, the drainage was completely wrong by about 70%. I was assured at that meeting, emphatically, that it had been rectified. I went down there the next day, nothing had been done. Nothing was done until about May. It's now about 40% wrong after the second attempt. We are not getting the water off it. There was a lot of money spent there and a lot of fill put in, too much fill. Other things that are brought up, like the drop-off on the Newstead Guildford Road, which were in excess of 100 mil, probably 150 mil, and there's also one in the corner of Kempsbridge Road and the Vaughan Road, which is probably close to 200 mil. These things should be attended, it should be checked by whoever your work supervisor is. They should be running around looking at these things. It doesn't seem to happen. The drainage system is getting worse. And I'd spoken to Councillor Neiman about this, and he said, well, we don't understand it the way you do because you can see these things. And I'd just like to make it simple for you. If you can see water lying at the side of the seal on the road or in the road seal itself, it is going to get under the seal and damage the pavement underneath. Therefore, it will go soft, the seal will distend when trucks and traffic go across it, and therefore it will affect the overall road, because it's supposed to have a curve on it to allow the water to drain off. The profile of the road, in a lot of cases, is gone. Mount Alexander are not spending enough money on the roads. We are spending money on the Wesley Hill thing, the centre that was required. Now we're looking at townscapes. I noticed in the papers a thing you were looking for ideas of what to do in the future. well, immediately we can start to do some more work on the drainage and put some more work into roads. Because we fiddle around paying for designs of things, and then we have meetings, and then it goes back and gets redesigned.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm going to have
There are no other people coming up.
Well, I'm not too sure. However, what I gather from what you're saying is that you know an awful lot about road construction and how it should be done, and that's a very valuable thing. And certainly, from my very limited knowledge, I understand that drainage is of paramount importance. As to what is being done and what is not being done, and whether more should be done, I'm not the person to say, or whether that's going to be said in this forum. I guess I could ask Mr. Josipovic, who is also, apart from being the...
He's an engineer, yes, I'm aware of that.
We'll see if he can offer a response now.
I can offer a part response, absolutely. Yes, I did meet with Mr. Brown and happy to meet with him again. I guess in terms of the comment around the work supervisor should be checking, my comment would be yes, the work supervisor does go and check roads, but we have 860 kilometres of gravel road in the Shire and we have 650 odd kilometres of
So
seal.
1,440 kilometres of road in all.
Yes,
Sealed and unsealed.
that's right. That's right.
And
So,
road reserve.
to inspect every single road on top of all the other duties he has in terms of supervising the works crew, etc., is a bit of an ask. But what I'd suggest to Mr. Brown that when those imperfections are noticed, the best way to deal with them is to let council customer service know, put it in merit, and we will go out and have a look at it and check it.
I have done this. I have spoken to you. And
I'm sorry,
Yes,
we're not
this is
engaging in conversation here now. I'm
No,
sorry, this
and
is
when
not
I
the
have
forum.
conversation, nothing gets done.
I'm
When
sorry,
I have a
I'm
meeting,
sorry.
nothing gets done and I get lied to.
Oh, that's a big
You-
call.
I'm sorry, we cannot hold this forum
Right.
in this manner at
Okay.
this stage. I'm sorry.
When somebody says emphatically that something's been done and it hasn't, he could have said, no,
Thank you.
I'm not aware.
No, thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to council? Yes, please, Ms. Sanders, would you come up? Thank you.
Joyce Sanders, retailer. All day today I've watched the usual 5 retailers in my block of Barker Street move their cars progressively up the street on the hour to avoid parking fines. I'm very positive about seeing that because it must be that we actually have an employed parking officer at the moment. So that's good, as my neighbours are usually the first to know when we don't have one. I hate being the ogre who has to stand up here every year to beg council for extra parking enforcement as we approach the Christmas period, or at least to make sure that we do have at least some parking enforcement for this peak period. It makes me look like I'm trying to inflict parking fines on all these nice people in the gallery, but in fact I'm trying to make sure that they can park in their own town when they need to. We have 5 retailers just in our little single block of Barker Street who will park all day in the street if they think we have no inspectors on duty. And out of our 10 car parks, that means we lose half of our parking for Christmas breakup parties at the cafes or simple Christmas shopping for locals, not to mention visitors to the town. And that really hurts Castlemaine's economy. I'm sure council hates to deal with people complaining about getting parking tickets, but I hope they can remember the common complaint in our new streetscape draft that we need more parking in Castlemaine. I still support our parking survey when it said that we don't in fact need more parking as long as we enforce the parking that we have. Please remember this is a peak period for many of our small retailers, and to survive they must have customers and the customers have to have parking. I just wonder if our parking enforcement has embraced modern technology so that instead of marking tires in the old way, an officer can just photograph a license plate so that we know if the same car is rolling along the street every hour. Or even better, if they can identify if it's a shopkeeper doing this. But please help small business have a good Christmas with customers who can park their cars. Please.
Thank you, Ms. Sanders. I have to say you need an award for your tenacity and perseverance on this matter. And I have to ask Mr. Yusufovich, is it in fact an offence to park in the same zone, the same street, if you like, for consecutive times?
No, it's not. The restriction applies to a bay. So if there's another bay available, parking bay that is, and someone wants to move to that, then that's okay. You can't.
However, in Bendigo, you're not allowed to park in the same zone. So we could change our...
Well, when we review our local law, we can certainly look at that, absolutely.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to us? Yes, Ms. Tree.
Hi, my name's Eliza Tree.
It's not on. No.
It's not on? Oh,
But
sorry.
I can hear you.
Hello, my name's Eliza Tree, and I am involved in quite a few environment groups and so on, as you probably know. But I also, at the moment, I'm just so impressed in these past few weeks with local councils around Australia who have been actually standing up and showing amazing leadership in the absolute absence of our parliamentary leadership. And I think it's just been really great to see that there's so much unity and so much power amongst communities and amongst local councils to actually show the leadership, which is lacking on such a national level.
Thank you. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you in the climate change forum. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to council? Oh, no, okay. In that case, councillors, I'm looking for a motion to resume standing orders. Councillor Machin and Councillor Patricia. Thank you. There are no petitions for joint letters and no committee reports. Next item on the agenda is assemblies of councillors. Councillors, do I have a motion on this matter?
Yes, I'll move that we note the records of assemblies of councillors as required under the Local Government Act 1989.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Corby. Is there any opposition? No, you wish to speak on the matter at all, Councillor Lesser? No, thank you. All right. Declare the matter carried and move on to officer reports. First one that we have, an important one, is Community Grants 2019 Round 2, recommendations for funding. And the purpose of this report is to provide councillors with the outcomes of the Community Grants Programme Round 2 and to provide the officer recommendations for the allocation of funds. I assume that the recommendation is to adopt, council adopt these recommendations. So, do I have a motion, Councillor? Councillor Lehman.
I'll move the council adopt the council officer's recommendations for funding as shown in table 1.
Thank you.
This document.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Machin. Is there any opposition? Do you wish to speak on the matter, Councillor Lehman?
I'll change my arm with this thing. This is part of involving the community. I think this whole assessment has been carried out at length, and I think that we've gone as well as we can with the budget we've got.
Thank you. Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Machin.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. I'm really impressed with the range of ideas that our community comes up with, ranging from mental illness to the science of the fruit fly, which is a really important economic theme for us, an economic issue, through to, the Malden's Men Shed, which is about health and positive ageing. Well, most of us around the table, we get couple of exceptions, need that, as well as for sport. And I think this is the best way. We've really looked at the guidelines. We've tried to improve the processes so that our community groups don't have to go through a whole lot of hoops. So it's a simpler process, and congratulate the officers on doing a whole lot of work to try and make this work for our community. And good luck to our communities. I think they're going to do a terrific job.
Thank you. Councillor Lassler.
Thank you, Mayor Henson. I want to draw Council's attention and the community to page 15 of this document under the heading of Policy and Statutory Implications. And I'm pleased to see that there's halfway down the page, there's a sentence that says reduce carbon emissions and manage the impact of climate change and partner with the community organisations to reduce environmental impacts. And I think that in the future we will hope to see that as some sort of column, I guess, in the way that we assess all these applications and grants, and that may come out in the future. So I think that it's already on the agenda as it's written here, but we may be able to even go a bit further in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lassler. Any other councillor wish to speak? I declare the matter carried. And note that that's a total of just under $50,000 that have been distributed for community to do work in the community, and it's a great way of getting a lot of useful work done on behalf of council, but also what the community wants in the various parts of the shire. Very good investment by council. The next item is the endorsement of Mount Alexander Shire Municipal Flood Emergency Plan and Northern Victorian Emergency Management Cluster Emergency Animal Welfare Plan. The purpose of this report is to present to councillors the Mount Alexander Shire Flood Emergency Plan, Northern Victorian Emergency Management Cluster Emergency Management Plan for endorsement. These have already been adopted, I believe, and we're simply endorsing them because we're part of the cluster. It's put them together. So, councillors, do I have a motion?
I'm just holding it up for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for the educational resources. You have the emergency management, animal management plan, and the flood management plan. So, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Neiman.
You can tell me which page it's
It's on page 22.
I actually have a question.
Yes, councillor.
Is that okay? So it asks us to note the Mount Alexander Shire Municipal Flood Emergency Plan. Emergency. So I'm just trying to work out, we're really just noting both of them, aren't we? We're not endorsing them, we're saying that here they are.
Well, part 2 of the recommendation is to endorse them both.
So
I guess we're noting them,
and endorsing them.
as is Councillor Lesser, making them visible to everyone.
So maybe, could I ask Ms. Knight to make that clear?
Yes, thank you. Thanks for the question. So the first recommendation there is noting that it's already been adopted by the Northern Victorian Emergency Management Cluster Integrated Municipal Emergency Management Planning Committee, so the IMEMC. So it's already been endorsed at that level. So from that component, yet we're noting it, but then also endorsing it, as opposed to adopting it. So there is a difference. So recognising the work that's already been done across those 5 councils.
Right. Okay. Does that help you?
Yes.
Good. So this was moved by Councillor Neiman. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Patricia, thank you. Is there any opposition? Do you wish to speak on the matter, Councillor Neiman?
Yeah. It's somewhat of a formality, but this is important work. I think it's valuable.
Thank you.
Is it possible to ask a question?
No, not too many.
Apologies, after the meeting. Any other councillor wish to speak? Yes. Councillor Manchin.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. I really appreciate all the hard work that has been put into these, and I also express my concern that the funding for the officer who is working very hard on this, the funding for that runs out at the end of June. Is that right?
Correct, June 30, 2020.
So it runs out at the end of this financial year. It's a state-funded position. We are lobbying hard to get this position remaining to be funded into the future. It's not as though emergencies are likely to reduce, and it's a very valuable position to do all of, a lot of coordinating work, not only with other council officers, but also with all the other emergency services. It's incredibly valuable. The work we've seen come out of this group is awe-inspiring.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Any other councillor wish to speak? No? Well, there being no opposition, I declare the matter carried. Thank you. And certainly important plans. So then moving on to the Castlemaine Botanic Gardens Conservation Management Plan.
The annual plan.
Oh, I missed something. I beg your pardon. Oh, goodness. The annual plan, progress report quarter 1. So first quarter of 2019-2020 annual plan. Recommendation is to note the progress. Councillors, do I have a motion?
Yes, I'll move that we note the annual plan progress report 2019 to 20 quarter 1.
Thank you, Councillor Lester. Seconded? Councillor Cordy. Is there any opposition? No? You wish to speak on the matter, Councillor Lester?
Well, just briefly, we're tracking okay, and another report will be coming up later in this meeting, but the annual plan seems to be on target, and we've had briefings on it, and I'm happy with the progress.
Thank you. Councillor Cordy? Any other councillor? No? Thank you. All right. Declare the matter carried. And now, on to a very important piece of work, long time in waiting, the Castlemaine Botanic Gardens Conservation Management Plan. So we have a long summary of it and the recommendation to note the results of the community consultation undertaken on the draft. So it's been after consultation, adopt the Conservation Management Plan, approve submission of the draft of the updated Statement of Significance to Heritage Victoria, and approve an allocation of funds to develop certain plans. So do I have a motion? Yes, Councillor Nation, lover of the gardens.
Certainly I am. So yes, I have a motion that is the recommendation with a minor change, and that is to adopt the Castlemaine Botanical Gardens Conservation Management Plan with the exception of 4.10.4 and the public use that would suggest that we don't allow any sporting uses there. And if you turn to page 40, it's in response to the community feedback request for no organised fitness. So I just wanted to, that's why I made that suggestion.
So to make it clear, you're suggesting that we take this large document
That
and
fabulous
remove
large document, yeah.
one section of
Yep.
section
4.10.4,
the
on
entire
page
section.
196.
Mhm. Public uses.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And we just take out the reference to not allowing public events in the gardens, is that correct? Or not allowing organised fitness and sports users and events.
That's the one.
Right, so that's to be removed because we do want to allow. I'll let you speak to that. Thank you. So that's your motion. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Petrucci. Is there any objection to Councillor Nation's motion? No? Would you love to speak on it, Councillor Nation?
Thank you. I always want to say Bottigees actually, but the Castlemaine Botanical Garden is a fabulous asset to this community. In the 15 or 16 years I've lived in Castlemaine, it just gets better and better councillors. And to the point where last Sunday, when I was going to the butterfly event, I actually had to struggle to find parking anywhere, and I had to get fit walking to it, which was great. So it's a much loved community facility. It is very much getting stressed by climatic events. And so we need to have done all of this work to really consider how do we keep it most loved by the community, what are the changes we need to make, and how do we keep our plantings healthy. So all of that is a wonderful thing, and I look forward to, it's not saying we're going to spend huge amounts on it immediately. This is a planned approach to take to have things happen within the normal operational work that we do. Also it gives us the capacity to apply for grants, because governments are always interested in shovel-ready, really ready-to-go things, which is what happened in the previous stimulus packages. We got a whole lot of things done at the Botanic Gardens. So all of this is hard work that has resulted in a much clearer plan for how we maintain this wonderful facility for our community. I was also really pleased to see that we have within there a risk assessment of climate change on our plantings. And I think that's a very valuable thing for us to be thinking, not just how do we keep this going for the next 5 years, it's how we keep this going for the next 100 years, because trees are not just things that last for 2 minutes. So I really do recommend this to my fellow councillors to adopt.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Petrisma.
Yeah, just fairly briefly. The amendment's really important to me, and I actually missed the changes to the document, and I thank Councillor Nation for actually bringing it to my attention. That would have meant that events such as Parkrun would have been banned from being in the gardens. Things like Run the Main wouldn't have been able to be run in the gardens. Bicycle Victoria has had run events in the gardens, and these are events that simply can't be run in the sunken oval. So I'm not sure what exactly brought about those changes, but I think that those changes are probably the wrong way to go. I'm a regular user of the gardens. I'm there multiple times a week. Saturday mornings for the park run, there can be up to a dozen or more visitors to our shire, other places all around the country. And on last Saturday we had somebody dressed as a pirate doing their last C, and they'd already done an R. And there's multiple people come and stay in our shire to do it. And it's run on the track, it's not on the grass, it's not impacting on the trees, it's run on the 1.7 kilometre track around there. There's also a lot of other users that do impromptu use of the gardens, Tai Chi, yoga, etc., which is not stressing the gardens, in my opinion. So I'm very happy to support the motion, and again I thank Councillor Nation for bringing my attention to that, but I have to admit that I missed.
Thank you, Councillor Petrisma. Any other councillor? Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I was there on Sunday as well, and it was chockers with people everywhere. And just to reiterate Councillor Mason's comment, there was birthday parties, there was the butterfly, there was people everywhere, and right at that time the SES were there as well, and they were chopping down a limb that you could see the cracks, so that's obviously dried out. So in amongst, between the 5-year-old birthday party and the butterfly, we had and yes, cutting down some branches that were starting to crack. So it is an important garden, and obviously the trees are being slightly stressed. So that was good to see that we were taking care of our community. So it is an important asset.
Thank you, Councillor Nelson. Any other councillor wish to speak? No.
Oh, sorry,
Yes, Councillor.
oh yes, sir.
You only get one go, you know.
Oh yeah, well, just briefly. Look, I forgot. In the recommendation, we've got some money to do develop a concept landscape plan.
Mm.
Can we also have a look at the water fountain that's near there, please?
Is that a request?
Yeah,
Do you think that's
that's what I'm
so are you putting that in part of your motion, or?
I'm just,
No.
I'm just,
Yeah.
I know that, I'm just,
We are putting forward a budget submission, and we've already drafted and I believe submitted an application through Heritage Victoria for the restoration of the gates as well as the fountain. So we're trying to chase some money for that.
Well, there being no opposition, I declare the matter carried. And for my part, I would say that having had the opportunity, due to a couple of long train rides, to read this entire document, I have to say it is a very high quality document. It is very impressive. The John Patrick Landscape Architects definitely did a very good job, and we're very lucky to have this. It would not have come cheap, nor should it. Because it's a long-term guiding document, a conservation management plan is a very important document for Heritage Place. We have one at Victory Park. That told us where to put the new playground, which I think looks pretty good where it is, as well as telling us lots of other things. This is a much bigger piece. We had a previous one which focused very much on the built-in parts of the garden. This one has a strong focus on the natural elements, the trees and the natural landscape, and I think it's very important. And we'll be very pleased to have this. Councillors in the future will be very pleased to have this as a reference document. And I thank those who gave input into the community consultation process. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item of business. Page 47, she said, struggling away, 44, 47, here we are. Planning permit application for the use and development of dwelling at the corner of Eagles Road and Mackay Road, Harcourt North. Councillors, we have application for use and development of the dwelling, and do I have a motion? Yes, Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor Henderson. In relation to this matter, we've had some work done by our staff as an alternate motion to the one that's in the minutes, and we have some copies of that, so could we circulate those, please? Basically, the recommendation is that the council issue a notice of decision to grant a planning permit for the use and development of dwelling at Corner Eagles Road and Mackay Road, Harcourt, subject to the conditions outlined in the document. Thank you, Mayor Henderson.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Just at this stage, I think our acting CEO has pointed out this is not an officer recommendation. This has been supplied because of their expertise in the area as an alternate motion, but the recommendation is to refuse as printed on page 47. However, you're moving this motion, so I'm looking for a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Gardner. Is there any opposition to this motion? Councillor Machin.
I want to hear it first, and I'll see
right.
where I'm going with it.
Thank you, Councillor Tristley. You're allowed to do that. So I'll ask Councillor Cordy to speak to his motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Henderson. This property is a small property that fronts Mackay Road, and it's immediately over the road from another property that council granted a planning permit for a short time ago at the last meeting, I believe. This particular property, my understanding, there's a lot of these properties in the Harcourt Valley, and I honestly believe all of these blocks would have had dwellings on them at some stage in the past, and I think this particular property lends itself to a small lifestyle type property and with a dwelling on it, and if the applicant comes up with a suitable farm plan that meets the requirements of our officers, I think it would be an excellent outcome to approve a dwelling on this lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. So, Councillor Gardner, do you wish to speak now or speak?
I'll speak after.
Okay. So, Councillor Machin. Yeah, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. I have a great deal of sympathy for the proposed for approving the planning permit. However, what it does is it puts the onus onto our officers to approve a farming plan. And it's also showing up for us, I think, a great deal of weakness in our understanding of what farming plans are, what our future vision is for those small farm lots around Harcourt. And one of the things that I think is the biggest risk we've got is that they in fact do turn into lifestyle lots that are not maintained in such a way that it supports the real potential of that area, which is about boutique farming, really good management. So for me, the risk is big until we have done some really good planning and consultation. The plan that has so far been presented to us is not a good plan, whereas quite distinctly the plan that was presented to us in the previous application was a much better plan, and I could really see the underlying permaculture principles which clearly showed why you needed to have somebody living on the land. I cannot see from this draft or this first issue of the farm plan such a need. I can't see the detailed permaculture planning or other farm planning that really reveals the need to have a house there. I could be convinced if we came back with a better one. It's just that it's a fairly unfair thing to be asking our officers to do this. So we need to have some system in place to enable that to happen, and that's why I'm voting against this.
Thank you, Councillor Machin. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favour of Councillor Cordy's motion?
I want to speak against it as well.
Yeah. So you want to speak? You want to speak at the end? So Councillor Patricia can speak now.
I'm with Councillor Machin. I'm probably going to speak against the motion. A little bit of reluctance there, but deciding which way I was going to go. To me, we've got our planning scheme. Basically, we can approve things, but basically to be approved for a house on less than 40 hectares in a farming zone basically requires farm activity, and not just a farm activity, but it also needs to provide a reason why it's necessary to live on the property whilst you farm the property, as opposed to living elsewhere and just merely farming the 9 hectares or however much it is. And that needs to me, the onus is on the applicant to demonstrate that they have a farm plan to actually use that as a small farm, and there's no problem with having a 9 hectare farm. And they've also got to demonstrate that the house that they wish to build is necessary for them to conduct the activity of the farm. And I believe in this particular application it's not shown, which is hence the officer's recommendation to refuse. In the amended motion that's been put forward, it basically says that we will allow it if a correct farm management plan is provided. But to me, I think I agree with Councillor Machin, that's probably the wrong way to go. I think in the first instance people need to put the right information first and not just a blanket, we'll approve it if you fix it up. I think it needs to be put in correctly the first time, and it needs to be assessed on its merits, and councillors can then assess whether that should be granted or not. We do have a discretion to do that, but I think it's got to be really clear that if you want to build a house in a farming zone on less than 40 hectares, you've got to be farming that land, and you've got to prove to us that you have to live on it to do it. Otherwise we're losing that land, and the other option is we look at the land and look at rezoning it to township zone or some other zone. At this stage it is farming zone, that is what it is, we can't change it. So I'm speaking against the motion that Councillor Cordy's put forward, and if it fails I'll probably put the original motion up, see how it goes.
Thank you, Councillor Petrucci. Councillor
I hear what people are saying about the plan, and this was probably one of the first planning applications we did under our new framework. And I suppose what it struck to me was we had the applicant who presented well. I think we have to acknowledge, though, that when making a decision, we're not just looking at the farm plan, it's all the information that we've been provided. And to me, part of that planning process, we had a person on, I don't wish to be derogatory, but he was a farmer who probably doesn't have the skills to write some great little glossy brochure and the words, but he obviously has asked a consultant to put it forward, and maybe that hasn't hit the mark, and maybe there's a reason for that. But the person had a long history on this particular property. He had orchards in the past that wasn't making money for him, so cleared it. The farm management plan can be improved, but to me, I believed, and from listening to the applicant, sure, he you know, not some great consultant who's written thing for him. I believed him in what he was saying. He wanted to make a go at it. The issue of the farming zone, it doesn't prevent, and I think we've had this conversation quite often, that you can't have a house on it. It's about us saying you can or you can't. And really, to me, at the moment, you've got a block of land that's got significant features on it, that's sort of vacant, nothing's happened on it, and there is it can be much better used by having a house on it, and with the plan he has developed, and which obviously will be hopefully further developed with our officers. And in terms of what's a good farm plan or not, the reality is it's 8 or 9 acres, and the quality of land is what it is, and any sort of farming activity we can see on that is better than it sitting vacant and nothing happening.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Gardner. Is there anyone else wishes to speak? Councillor Ursula.
Yes, I'm not going to speak for or against it, which is a bit strange. But what I am, and I have pointed this out at a number of meetings, a number of briefings, and this was going to come back to bite us slightly. And what we should be doing as councillors, together with our planning department, is to grasp the nettle and get this sorted out, because this is just going to keep on coming up meeting after meeting after meeting, and some people will win and some people will lose. And I think that we should have had a long time ago some sort of a policy, some sort of recommendation, so that it's very clear. And so I'm just a little bit disappointed that we keep coming up to the same wall all the time. What we really need to do is break through this wall and get it sorted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ursula. I look forward to your initiative in the next council briefing to bring a request for a piece of strategic work to allow us to develop this. Yes, Councillor Neiman.
I think times have changed a little bit, and we're at the perfect storm end of all of this stuff about constructing residences on less than 40 hectares. We suffer from being an old gold mining town where some of the allotments are quite strange. We've got freeways built through the middle of the town which change the nature of farming in those areas they affect. I think it's a great thing that we brought this to the front of mind.
Thank you, Councillor Neiman. I think everyone's spoken. Yes. In which case, I think. Oh, we'll let Councillor Ursula.
Hang on, just talk about the drawing.
Thank you, Councillor. That's from at the end. So I'll ask people, councillors, to indicate those in favour of Councillor Corley's motion.
Oh, put me in.
And those against. I declare the matter carried.
Division, please.
Councillor motion is called for a division, so can I please have those in favour of the motion, please? That's Corley, Lessler, Gardner and Neiman. And those against? Councillor Machin, Petrisma and Henderson. Thank you. With that matter decided at this council. We'll move on to page 62. Contracts for the provision of various trade services for the period of 1st of January 2020 to the 31st of December 2021. So this is a large number of trade services and we're looking at a very large recommendation for the first. So I expect whoever's going to move this will speak to it a bit so we know what's going on. So is there someone who would like to move this motion, please, for the provision of trade services? Come on.
Okay, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Do I have a seconder, Councillor Machin? Is there any opposition? No, good. Councillor Lesser, would you like to speak to this motion?
Yes, just briefly. Look, this is important. Everybody's had an opportunity to put in their information, their tenders, their quotes, their expressions of interest. It's a large undertaking. Yes, the recommendation is a whole page. No, I'm not going to read that out. It would just be the recommendation as printed. And it's good to see that people have got an opportunity. I know it doesn't always work out. And even it gets a bit frustrating when works have to be done and you think, why can't this person do it instead of this person? But I guess the officers have worked through all of that. So I'm giving that a recommendation that we just go with it and get things done.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Machin.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. This is very important. It enables our facilities to be looked after efficiently and effectively. Don't have to keep going to tender processes or other of the delegated processes. So, a big tick for efficiency and effectiveness. And the second big tick is that there are a lot of locals in there. And that's partly the change to our procurement processes, which does give some weighting to locals. And so I think that's a grand outcome as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Machin. I know I called you Mayor Machin there. Yeah, Councillor Patricia.
Just quickly, I also support the motion, obviously, and I was really happy to see some quite a lot of local businesses applied. Not all were successful, and I encourage those that missed out to continue to put in for the next time that these come up, and possibly to look at where they might have lost out. But it's really good to see, I don't want to say all of them, but Dredge Earth Moving, Cowlex Electrical, Paul Cochrane, Castlemaine Central Carpets. There's quite a number of local businesses through the document, and I'm really pleased to see, and there's also businesses that are from neighbouring shires who employ people from our shire as well. So I'm really pleased that a lot of the work is being done by local contractors or by local staff members of neighbouring contractors.
Thank you, Councillor Patricia. Next, any other councillors to speak? Yeah, Councillor Farr.
Very briefly. I suppose I just want to reinforce, and I'm voting for it, the local content. I think that is a really good initiative, and really it keeps the money in the shire and creates jobs for locals, and so that's just really a great thing, and it's good to see an outcome of the change of that procurement process is happening.
Any other councillor? No? Lovely. Okay. Well, there being no opposition, I declare the matter carried. And add my tick to the including 10% evaluation criterion local content economic benefit, which is good because we have argued for that for quite a few years, and I think we've been successful there, and hopefully it will prove beneficial to all parties, council included. Thank you. The next item is the financial management report. That's our quarter ending 30th of September, and the recommendation is we note.
I'll move the council note the financial management report for for the 3-month period to 30th September 2019.
Thank you, Councillor Lester. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Patricia. Is there any opposition? No? Councillor Lester, would you like to speak to you?
Yes, I do. I do want to speak. This is fantastic. Now, I could have a bit of fun here, and this happens to be the best council and the best shire in Victoria. Now, there you go. And when we went to, Councillor Henderson and I went to a finance meeting on Ballarat on Friday, and
I must butt in and say it was financial management training for councillors.
well, it was an outing, yes. Financial management training. And I can assure our fellow councillors that we live in councillor heaven. And the relationship that we have with our staff, well, I'm talking about the financial staff, but the whole staff, the relationship that we have with our staff is the envy of all those sitting around the table. And there were some big players in there, you know, larger cities with a few times more population than what we have. And what is a particular note, that our income statement was held up as being one of the best ones, a very good example. So we were better than all these multi-million-dollar shires, and it was quite, it was just unbelievable to see. And I think that the public that are here today really should grasp the fact that we are doing a great job in our financial management. We've got a fantastic relationship with our staff, and we are the envy of all these others. And I just kept shaking my head. I could not believe the antagonism that was going on between the other councillors and their staff financial. So we are really blessed to have this type of arrangement and this type of well-being and all that with our staff and the councillors. And as I said, the community are well served by what we're doing in our financial, and we are in a good point. And the guy that said all this was in fact the author of some of the financial parts of the new Local Government Act. And I think that we should be really, really pleased, and the public should, as I reiterate, should be really happy that we've got a handle on this, and we are up there with the best. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else in any of those other councils. And that's what I got the feeling of. I don't know, Councillor Henderson, you might be able to back that up, but there you go.
Thank you, Councillor Lester. After that promo, anyone else wish to speak on this? Councillor Cordy.
Thanks, Mayor Henderson. I'd just like to acknowledge the work of our staff in relation to working on managing the finances of council. We are in sound financial shape, and certainly Max has been doing a lot of work trying to understand the finances, which is a complicated field, but our council's in sound financial shape, and it's great to hear that we're being recognised throughout the region for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cordy. Any other councillor wish to speak? I declare the matter carried. And I will say it was a very good day. We were being trained as councillors to scrutinise our financial management reports and budgets and annual reports, looking for risks, problems, inaccuracies, maybe things being slid underneath the carpet, etc. So it was training for councillors to be able to interrogate financial reports intelligently, and we will certainly continue to do that, won't we, Councillor Nassau?
Yes.
Because of the dynamic between the officers and the councillors, there's always that of having to check, having to make sure it's all well, and pretend we really understand all this accounting jargon, when in fact we're probably scratching our heads a lot of the time. But not so much now we've been on the training. So thank you, Councillor Lester, thank you, councillors. And I've got a feeling, I've lost my space, of course, when we want to find financial fraud.
I've got
It might have been the last item on our agenda.
So, Councillor, there's delegates' reports.
Oh, delegates' report.
I have a point of order, and I'm not quite sure how to manage this. Going back to the previous meeting, and it's, my name is down as part of the Audit and Risk Committee, and I think it should be you.
Well, we couldn't put anyone in, could we? Didn't know who it was going to be.
That's right.
Previous meeting or previous report?
No, the previous meeting, the special meeting.
Oh, sorry, yes.
So I'm not quite sure how we.
So you're just going to have to do it again.
I think we might have to do a correction at the next meeting,
Correction at the next
Yeah.
meeting, yeah, okay.
because I don't think we can go back and revisit that.
No, I know I can't, but I'm just tabling the fact that I think we made a bit of
Yeah, so we'll make a note of that and we'll bring a short report at the next meeting to correct that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Richardson. Right, delegates' report. Well, the CEO's not here, the mayor's just stepped out. What are we going to do, Mr. Sturridge?
Well, this is the monthly activity report about the meetings that the CEO and Mayor attend. I've only been in the chair a very short time, so I haven't been to too many meetings. But I wanted to talk about one particular meeting I went to recently, which was the it was the deep dive into the regional partnerships, deep dive into youth education, etc., which was held in Bendigo. It was one of those meetings that will stick with me for a long time, because the highlight for me was some young people who had experienced some great difficulty through their schooling days and going through VCE, both dealing with mental issues and perhaps some addiction issues at home and those sorts of things, to get up in front of a group of about 300 people and tell their story was an amazing experience for me. So just want to reflect that with the councillors, but perhaps I should really pass over to Councillor Mason, who's got a lot more activity on there than I have.
Yes, please, Councillor Machen, your last report from when you were mayor. Thank you.
Finished today at 4:30. Just a couple of things I wanted to bring to your attention is that the meeting with the MAB, North Central region, and we talked about the new Local Government Act, and that in spite of the fact that it's going through Parliament, we actually don't know the cost of it on our services. The devil will be in the detail. The detail's not in the bill, and we've as yet got no process for how all the devil and detail is going to be worked out. This is a matter of concern for all councils, because we've had cost shifting and we've had responsibility shifting, and none of our rate cap is actually at the CPI. It's always been below the CPI. So this is a matter of major concern for us all, and the MAB is doing a good job of trying to work out what the heck it means for the financial report, which we've just tabled. And the second thing is, I went to an RAR meeting, that's Rural Australians for Refugees meeting last night, and ended up coming out as the new chair. So I'll have to declare conflicts of interest in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Machen. So, councillors, we have this.
Mayor Henderson, sorry. Mayor Henderson, can I just bring up an item in the CEO's on there? Just wanted to acknowledge that the CEO and myself attended the meeting with representatives from one of our Section 86 committees in relation to the trying to progress the dog park proposal. And just want to let people know that we are still attempting to progress it, and I think we're slowly getting there. So I just want to make sure that people realise that we have not forgotten, and we're still attempting to get it done.
Thank you very much, Bishop Councillor Bashir. With you on the case, I've got every confidence that we'll progress. Thank you. Any other councillor wish to comment? No. Well, thank you. That's the delegates' reports. No other delegates' reports. No notice of motion, no notice of special business, so I declare this meeting closed at 7:30. Thank you.